So you're interested in hiring a language teacher to help you meet your language learning goals. What are the questions you need to ask? So, when I was working as an English teacher in Spain, I used to make most of my income from freelance teaching. And a lot of people didn't. To be honest, I really enjoyed freelance teaching because it gave me the freedom to meet students' needs right at the moment and to give them, the students, whatever they needed, whether that was conversation, companionship, exam skills, whatever. One thing I do wish, though, is I wish my students had asked me more questions before about what my teaching approach was or what I could bring to the class. And I know that students quite often they just wanted to talk, but then they would kind of fire me from the job afterwards because they didn't feel that they were making progress, or I would try to get the students on track but then realize like a month into it that maybe they just wanted more correction or they needed something that was more structured. So, based on my experiences as a teacher working with private students, I put together this video that gives you some questions and some ideas of what you can ask someone if you're looking to hire a teacher for private language classes. So, the first thing I would do is ask any of my friends if they had any recommendations for teachers they had worked with. Your friends are probably the best source of information for things like this because they'll warn you about the teachers who they didn't like and tell you more about the teachers that they did like working with, the good points and maybe the not so great points. When you contact a teacher for the first time, try to meet them in person in a public place like a coffee shop or if it's possible, just a quick online call. They may offer you a full free hour class at the beginning, but you'll probably get just as good a sense of what they're like with a quick meeting first. Don't commit to anything immediately. If the teacher asks you to sign a contract or an agreement right off the bat, that is not a good sign. You shouldn't feel pressured into agreeing to anything before you've had a chance to think about it. And trust your feelings with the teacher. You might have the impression that the teacher is brilliant or amazing or super smart, but if you don't feel comfortable with that person or you've got a little voice in the back of your head telling you no, definitely listen to that voice because it's trying to tell you something really important. Now, let's talk about the teacher themselves. There's a saying in English that you get what you pay for, and one of the things that I noticed when I was teaching in Spain is that teachers who didn't have any kind of degree or certification in teaching English tended to be the least expensive. That doesn't mean that they're the best option. It's better to look for someone who does have a certificate or a degree, and what's better is if that they have a year or two at least of teaching experience, preferably with experience in teaching adults if that's what you're looking for. And as we'll see in a moment, people who have been teaching for a while usually have a lot of photocopies and exercises from past classes that they can use in yours. Here's a question that you can ask the teacher. What kind of class does the teacher enjoy giving? Do they prefer doing business English classes, for example, business language classes, or do they work best with kids? In my experience, I didn't enjoy working with children, even though some parents would insist that their kids were amazing and that they were great. And okay, that's good, but even if the kids were amazing, I am not the best teacher for kids. And it's important to know that about your teacher right from the start. So, on to business topics. This part is important because, in my experience, this is where these things are what break down the relationships between teachers and students a lot of the time. And you notice I slipped a phrasal verb in there, break down. First of all, cancellation policies. Teachers lose money when students cancel. It's a fact of life, and most teachers understand that. However, if you frequently cancel at the last minute, your teacher may decide that it's not worth keeping you as a student and let you go because, yes, teachers can fire students too. When you're talking to the teacher, ask them if they have any kind of cancellation policy. And if they don't, suggest this because this is the way a lot of language schools do it. If you need to cancel the day before the class, you can always reschedule it to a later date. But if you need to reschedule it the day of, or you need to cancel the day of, try to find something where it's like you pay for half of the class in advance, or you have some sort of like agreement for the money, like you lose half the class, for example, because it's not a perfect system, but at least it shows that each party is aware of the needs of the other person. Invoicing and receipts. Do you need them for work? Does it help you keep track of your spending? If your teacher asks you for your details in order to give you an invoice or receipt, please don't say no. The reason why is that in many countries, teachers need to present that documentation when they do taxes in order to show how much money that they'd made the year before. And finally, holidays, especially for big periods of more than a week, like Christmas period or Semana Santa in Spain. Discuss in advance what your expectations are. One good thing to know is that if your teacher is working during that time, it's also a good moment to ask for extra classes should you happen to need them. And finally, let's talk about the classes themselves. Before starting classes with your teacher, determine whether you're going to have sessions that are 55 minutes long or 60 minutes long. And there are two reasons why it could be shorter. Number one, bathroom breaks. Number two, public transit. In many places, buses, trains, and metros only run at 15 or 30-minute intervals, and that might make the difference between your teacher being able to make it to the next class or being stuck working and reading at a bus stop, and that's not productive time, and productive time is what makes money. Talking time. In most classes, students should do more talking than the teachers do. The exception to this, of course, is that, teachers might need to explain something or they might need to go into detail about a point. And that's fine. But if you're finding as a student that you are doing more listening than you are talking, you should bring that up with the teacher. As I mentioned before, a lot of us teachers have piles of photocopies and piles of exercises, links, big lists of links in our web browsers. But if you find that you would do better with a textbook, that's nothing to be ashamed of. Some students just like the structure and the grammar that are in the textbooks, and they find that they do better if they have that structure. And this is the last one, but it's still important. What kind of corrective feedback does the teacher give you? Does the teacher interrupt you when you've made a mistake? Do they give you a list of things to work on at the end of class? Either approach is fine, but it depends on how you like to learn. And be careful with teachers who don't correct you at all. Correction kind of hurts sometimes, but it's useful information that shows you how to get better. And as always, don't hesitate to get in touch if you have any questions or any doubts. I can be reached by email at detuatolearning@gmail.com. And if you use Instagram, come follow me and leave me a comment or send me a DM. My handle over on Instagram is @YourLangTeacher. Thanks very much and talk to you soon.